Hello, folks. Welcome back to Chris Wyatt Reports. This is a reaction video to who does he speak for? Now, I'm reticent to do these sort of videos, and people should not infer incorrectly at the outset that this is an attack of any sort on the content creator. It's far from that. But I'm here to raise questions about what exactly the intent was by Citizen Concern to make this video. It's deceptive in several ways. Whether she intended it to be that way or not is puzzling. I am not going to play clips of her video because I don't have permission to use her video. She hasn't answered my previous mail, so I haven't reached out to even ask. So I'm just simply going to read some of her comments and then respond to some of them. Now, you can accuse me of cherry picking comments to suit my need, but that wasn't my intent. I went through this and looked for comments that I found to be questionable, and there are comments I actually agree with her. So let's be clear about that. Again, this is not an attack on Citizen Concern, but someone who suddenly appears and gets all this attention and all these people pay attention to their videos, yet they're not doing basic research. It warrants setting the record straight. Now, she says this is in response to Ernst Rhodes being in the United States and visiting with organizations here in the States trying to raise awareness for the newly founded Afrikaner Foundation. And apparently that upsets her. She said, if you see yourself as an outsider, should you be surprised that people treat you as an outsider? Well, that's a fair question. If you are Amish and you self-segregate yourself, then you shouldn't be surprised that people look at you differently. Well, being an Afrikaner is not self-segregation. That's nonsense. Now, she acts as if people just marginalize you. You must ignore that. Steve Biko rightly refused to be marginalized. Robert Sobukwe also refused to buy into that nonsense. Now, she quotes Ernst Rhodes in a conversation with Jack Posobiec. I don't know why he's so popular in the States. I don't watch him. But Jack Posobiec interview, and he says, we regard ourselves as Westerners. To which Citizen Concern says, you don't identify as one of us. She seems to be very disappointed that Rhodes uses a term constantly applied to him by black supremacists in South Africa. Now, that's rich. She's not a black supremacist. She's a decent human being by all accounts that I can see. But he is called a Westerner or a European or a colonizer. It has nothing to do with his ancestors coming from Europe, being a Westerner. It has to do with what Zuma says. Black South Africans all too often call white South Africans Europeans and not calling them Afrikaners when they're Afrikaners. Now, he says he's a South African. When did he claim otherwise? So Petty can't claim that they're Petty. Tswana can't say that they're Tswana. They can't be proud to be Tswana. So saying that you're an Afrikaner is different. Saying that you're a Westerner, I get her objection here, but she's taking this out of context. He was speaking to an American interviewer for an American audience, putting it in a context that people in America would understand. And it comes from the concept of the fact that many black South Africans don't consider white South Africans to be African. They constantly call them Europeans, telling them to go home, stop being colonizers. What he meant by that, quite clearly, is that the value system that is Western, that's a concept that's not exclusive to the West. She uses a dictionary definition to say what Western is, but that's an incorrect definition. Japan is considered a Western country, even though it's in the East, because of its modern industrialization and its value system. It's considered part of the West when people look at the West. So what he was saying was not that we are not South African, we're Westerners, we're just aliens in this context. And he goes on to explain that they have been in South Africa for hundreds of years. They are African. And I've never heard him say that he's not South African and identify as an Afrikaner exclusively. That's just silly. Zuma and the MK party seek a country that is not based on Western civilization. Remember the recent line, no Roman Dutch law? So the use of Western here is not controversial. She's making controversial. Then she brings in the EFF and Corné Mulder's comments to reinforce her objection to Ernst Rhodes. Ostensibly, this is because the Freedom Front Plus supports a referendum on Cape independence. And she also uses his place of birth, which apparently is in Orania. I didn't know that. To somehow imply that this strengthens her arguments that I guess the link she's trying to make is that since the Freedom Front Plus supports Cape independence, Orania, which is a private corporation, must have something to do with that because the Freedom Front Plus supports identifying and recognizing Orania, which is already recognized by the South African government. This is a silly argument. And somehow, because he's born in Orania, all that ties together. What does the Freedom Front Plus have anything to do with this conversation? Your issue is because he identified as a Westerner. And I've already disabused you of that notion. She said, our mission as South Africans should be to work together. Really? Really? You see a lot of that happening around you. There's no reason that people shouldn't be concerned that they're going to be marginalized if they're Khoi, if they're San, if they're Tswana, if they're Afrikaner by this black supremacist ANC government. Like, that shouldn't be an issue for people. Now, as to her statement, our mission as South Africans should be to work together, I'd say that's a fair argument. But let me ask you this, citizen concerned. What are you doing to eliminate racial discrimination through broad-based black economic empowerment or government hiring preferences, eliminating minorities? What about the elimination of Afrikaans from the public sphere or renaming towns and villages founded by Afrikaners to something that's not Afrikaans? What about the fact that Stellenbosch University, the land was granted to the university in a perpetuity, provided the medium of instruction is Afrikaans? Is this not a people that should be concerned that they're being eliminated from the public space? And it's wrong to have groups that advocate for their rights? Do you not get how such things come about? Malema, Zuma, BEE. Then she says, this kind of talk is not the talk of people who want unity, emphasizing one race over all South Africans. We have a problem. We are different, but we identify as one thing, South African. Again, I ask, when exactly did Ernst Rhodes ever claim he's not South African? In this video, you claim you're PD. Oh, so you're not South African? It's just silly. It's just silly. Also, it's very disingenuous to use a clip of Rhodes speaking to Jack Prosabiak in the US, misleading people. He was talking to someone in the USA in a context that Prosabiak would understand. Given he is constantly called a European rather than a South African and a colonizer rather than a South African, it's hardly surprising that Ernst Rhodes would use that term. Together, all four races. Excuse me, full stop. There's only one race, the human race. In the words of Robert Sobukwe, and I quote, there's only one race to which we all belong, and that is the human race. In our vocabulary, therefore, the word race as applied to man has no plural form. Bingo. There are no four races. That's nonsense. That's a South African construct that comes from Europeans. She says, I know that not all white people think like this. Like what exactly? Like what exactly? She says she's surprised that he's in the United States during the Republican convention. Then she tries to tie Republican Party somehow into her arguments. She says, we don't hear, we are Irish, we are blacks. She's correct. That nonsense doesn't come from Republicans. It comes from political left and Democrats. She got that correct. But then she tries to equate the Afrikaner Foundation and Rhodes with a political party. Now that's dishonest. Do you know who does play identity politics? It's the EFF, MK, and the ANC. Well, citizen concerned, do you know who also plays identity politics? The NAACP, the Southern Poverty Law Center, the Ivy League schools, the Democratic Party. You can't go on international trips to advocate for one group in South Africa, she says. Really? Julius Malema in Venezuela? In Zimbabwe? The ANC in Tehran? Seems to happen all the time with South African political parties. But Ernst Rhodes is not a political party. And you're falsely equating him with a political party. I'll give you a few examples of things that aren't political parties that are identity politics. She says, are we not all in this together? Well, that's a good question. I think it's a fair question. She says, I stand for everyone. The ACDP stands for everyone. Action SA stands for everyone. The DA stands for everyone. Why can't you? And I'd argue that ACDP largely does stand for everybody, and Action SA less so. A lot of race hustling in some of their comments. The DA tends to stand for everybody. She says, why can't you? Why can't you do the same? Now, I'd ask her the same question. Why has she not bothered to get the facts, learn what she's talking about? Why isn't she standing up for Afrikaners when she claims to stand for everyone? Where is her support? Now, by contrast, I actually do stand up for folks, for colored South Africans, for Khoi, for San, for Afrikaners, for Basotho, for Tswana. And it's not simply words, but hundreds of videos and my travel and my trips to South Africa, my promotion of Basotho, of Tswana, of Afrikaans languages and the ethnic groups. And that's not exclusionary. I'm lifting up groups, but there's so many groups in South Africa, I can't focus on all of them. What is she doing on behalf of Afrikaners when she says she stands for everyone? Maybe she's doing something. I haven't been aware of it, but she doesn't mention what she's doing in this video. Ernst Rhodes is not a political party nor a political movement. She says you have every right to preserve your culture. But strangely, in the very next sentence, she then complains that Rhodes is fighting only for Afrikaners. What is she talking about? He has a right to preserve his culture, which is what the Afrikaner Foundation is ostensibly founded for, but then she takes exception to that. What? In the very next sentence. She says the evils of the African National Congress are not hurting Afrikaner people only. Yeah, and I've done thousands of videos pointing out how the ANC's policies hurt Black South Africans more than anyone else, how coloreds are marginalized, how Indians are pushed aside. He never made any such claim that only Afrikaners are suffering, did he? If he did, please show it to me. I'm not familiar with it. She said, you make it sound as if only Afrikaner people are suffering. That's not true. That's her claim. The facts don't support that. AfriForum, which he was a member of, now he's with the Solidarity Movement, but AfriForum, which Ernst Rhodes was a member of for a long time, AfriForum speaks on behalf of other minority groups in South Africa, including Black South Africans, offering advice and support to them. Do your research, Citizen Concern. Learn about what you're talking about. You're conflating all sorts of things to make an argument because apparently, despite your claim that you had no interest in Rhodes, you dislike him. And it's pretty obvious by what you say coming up here in a moment. She admonishes Rhodes to guard his mouth, spends 2 minutes on this. Then she falsely uses Jack Posobiec's idiotic comment claiming, well, there was no one here when we came to America. That was moronic. That's idiotic. She attributes that to Ernst Rhodes because she plays the video and then she admonishes Rhodes about it. That's Jack Posobiec. If you want to comment on Jack Posobiec, which you're welcome to do, the guy doesn't know his ass from a hole in the ground, so you're welcome to comment on him. But don't lie, she says. So why is she lying? Using that clip as if Ernst Rhodes said that. He never said that. Then she laughs after stating that Malema fights for Black people and Ernst Rhodes is fighting for Afrikaner people. Not whites. That's tribalism, isn't it? Well, what exactly is Malema's approach then? Racism? Advocating for one group based on their skin color? Is that racist? In fact, it's the very definition of racism. Giving advantage or disadvantage to a group of people based on their skin pigmentation is racist. So tribalism is worse than racism? I don't really understand her argument there. Then she categorically states that Ernst Rhodes is far right. You want Afrikaner next to South Africa. Really? Now that's your perception. I have lived among the Tswana people. I have lived among Afrikaners, and that's not been my experience. What are you talking about? They want next to South Africa. What planet are you on? What ivy tower are you living in? Yes, there are Afrikaners that want exactly that. There are Afrikaners that want to be all by themselves. But Ernst Rhodes has never advocated for that. Show me where he said that, please. What is the basis for your claim? And then this very disturbing sentence, to people like these ones, they believe they come first. That's an interesting choice of words. But Citizen Concern tells us, of course, she's not worried. Not all white people think like Ernst Rhodes, just like not all Black people think like Julius Malema. And what have I been telling people for years? Stop stereotyping people, whether they're colored, they're white, they're Black. This idiotic commentary on my channel 4 years ago that Blacks will never vote for anyone else. That's a dumb comment. How can you categorize 43 million people and say that then Blacks will always vote for the ANC? Well, that's not true. The ANC is losing votes left and right, lost 4 million votes this last time. And I told you that before the 2021 municipal elections. Unlike Citizen Concern, actually do my research and know what I'm talking about. I'm not attacking her, but it's very easy to find out what AfriForum stands for and what they've done and who they've helped. Simply contact them. And if you don't believe them, then contact the groups who they say they've helped and ask them if it's true. It's not hard. Don't equate the Afrikaner Foundation and a trip to Washington with exclusion. That's not what's sought here. The Académie Française protects the French language. Doesn't make it racist, doesn't make it exclusionary, doesn't make it outside of France. France is full of Muslims and North Africans and Africans. But the Académie Française protects the language. The Afrikaner Foundation is looking to support and protect the Afrikaans culture and language, which, by the way, is not organic. It's African grown. But she says she's not worried. Nor am I worried. Not all content creators mislead or fail to do their basic research. Some actually ask their viewers to think critically and reach their own conclusions, which is what I ask you to do. Now, her comments are unfortunate and do exactly the opposite of what she purports to be trying to do. Unify South Africans, because she cherry picks. Using Posiak's comments to attribute them to Rhodes or you castigate him for what Jack Posiak said, That's not just. That's not legitimate. Mixing off reform and solidarity and the Freedom Front Plus, there are ties and relations, but that doesn't make it factual the argument she's making. So she cherry picks, edits, and presents this information in a fashion that suits her goal, not the truth. And you can accuse me of the same thing. I didn't play her video verbatim and then respond to it, and I'm not debating her because I haven't heard from her. If she wants to discuss it, I'll be happy to do it. So you can accuse me of the same thing, but I'm not doing that. I'm simply pulling out a number of comments. You notice I also compliment her on a few of things. Now, denied access to public universities and tech schools, Afrikaners should just roll over and accept that. Being disrespected and dismissed and marginalized, they should respect that. Being denied equal treatment under the law, and she suggests that building schools to overcome this discrimination is an exclusionary stance. It's not. If you want to go to Saltech, the school built by the Solidarity Movement to teach tech skills, or academia, the university, you simply need to be able to speak Afrikaans. I've been to academia. I've seen college students there who speak Afrikaans. There are Black South Africans whose first language is Afrikaans. They can go. And they have scholarship programs to help people out who don't have the money. It's not exclusionary. It's language-based. Look, I don't have a beef with Citizen Concern, but I do take exception to her intentionally misleading, or is it simply poorly informed arguments in this video. I am curious why she chooses to take this visit, to take this occasion to decide to make a comment about Ansel Rhodes. And she says all the right things about Malema's an idiot and Zuma's acting like a fool and these people are being stupid. That's all true. But you're not being fair to Ansel Rhodes. You don't have to like him. You can dislike him all you want. But be objective and be honest here. Do your research on what's actually going on with Solidarity, AfriForum, and the Afrikaner Foundation. You barely even mention the Afrikaner Foundation here. The whole video seems to be a response to him calling himself Western. And somehow, based on that one sentence, you made an extremely long video, 16 minutes, to basically attack him by mixing in the Freedom Front Plus and Orania and Jack Posiak's comments, and all of this is suddenly Ansel Rhodes' fault. Well, have you met the man? Somehow I doubt it. Maybe you should meet him. Have a conversation with him. Ask him these questions. Anyway, folks, again, not an attack on Citizen Concern, and I don't have an argument with her, but people should get the information before they make these claims. Cheers. Thanks a lot for being here. And Citizen Concern, you're doing some good work in the space. Keep it up. But if this is the level of your research for these things, I'm a little bit nervous about some of your videos. But good luck out there, folks. Thanks a lot. Cheers.